Here it is. What can you do with this, Jesus? Notice what the Bible has to say in Mark chapter 6. Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and he broke the loaves. He says, everybody have a seat. I'm about to do something that's going to be pretty cool. And he takes the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and he looks up to heaven and he blesses it. I don't know what he says. The Bible really doesn't say what he says, but it's possible that he said something like this. God, Heavenly Father, show these people that you're real, that you're concerned about the little things in their life, like them being hungry. And God, may you get the glory for this, what's about to take place. He gave thanks and he broke the loaves and he gave them to the disciples and set them before the people. And he also divided the 2 fish among them all. Now it's interesting that Jesus had these 5 loaves of fish, which, like I said, were probably these little muffins. And he began passing them out and he's going into the basket and something keeps coming out. It's kind of like an Olive Garden, right? You eat those breadsticks, you get some more, right? Those are really good breadsticks. Jesus is handing out these muffins, and it's a continual, bottomless basket of muffins. And he does the same thing with the fish. And everybody's looking around, and this little boy, like I said, becomes the hero because he fed everybody with what he had to offer Jesus. Now, I just want to say this. What is it that you have to offer Jesus? You can't just say, God, I want you to do a miracle in my life, but God, I'm going to put some limits on you as to what part of my life you can have. God, I want you to have this little part of my life, but I don't want you to take this away from me, God. I still have things over here that I like to do that I know you don't want me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. You know, God can't work in a life like that. When you and I come to Jesus Christ, we say, we want you to be in control. We want to put you number one. We want to seek you first. And when we do that, we understand that you're going to keep your promise that all these other things will be added to you. Well, let me just ask you. In the difficult situation that you're going through today, are you willing to give him every part of that? In your job situation, maybe you're not happy in your job or your career choices. Are you willing to say, God, what is it that you want me to do in my life? And whatever it is, God, I'll do it. Maybe it's your relationships with your family and it's difficult. And you're saying, God, I'm ready to just give up. But are you willing to give him everything that you've got? You keep on seeking, you keep on knocking, you keep on asking, and God opens the way. Now, I want you to notice this 4th point about this miracle. If you want God to do a miracle in your life, I have to expect God to multiply it. I expect him to do something. God, you tell me if I put you first, that you're going to do something, that you're going to provide for me. God, I'm going to give you whatever I have, and I expect you to multiply it. Now, why is that? Why do you have to have this expectation that he's actually going to do something in your life? Notice this verse in Hebrews 11:6. Let's read it out loud together, okay? Hebrews 11:6 says this. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Why do you have to expect that he's going to do something? Because it's impossible to please God without faith. You cannot say, God, do a miracle in my life in this area, and then you take it over and you try to do it all by yourself. You cannot do that with God. You cannot play Indian giver with God. You cannot give him something and then take it right back from him. You've got to be able to say, God, this is what I have. I give it to you right now. I expect you to multiply it. Now, notice this verse just really quick. It says, because anyone who comes to him must do two things. Number one, believe that he exists. Now, let me just ask you this morning, do you really believe God exists? It is possible to go to church and not believe that. It is possible. A lot of people do that week in and week out. But do you really believe that he exists? And do you really believe that he wants to reward you when you seek him earnestly? That means with everything you've got. Well, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Well, what is faith? Notice the next verse. What is faith? It is the confident assurance that something we want is going to happen. It is the certainty that what we hope for is waiting for us, even though we cannot see it up ahead. You want to know what real faith is? It's trusting God even though you can't see it happening. Even though it seems like it's impossible. That how could God possibly turn the situation around? Faith is saying, God, I have confident assurance that you are in control of everything, and I'm just going to trust you with that. I know that you can do what you want to do in this situation. Now, notice this. God will multiply whatever we give him. In Mark chapter 6, 42 and 43, the Bible tells us, after everyone had eaten all they wanted. How many of you have ever eaten all you wanted, right? Good. After everyone had eaten all they wanted, Jesus' disciples picked up 12 large baskets of leftover bread and fish. How many baskets of leftovers were there? 12, right? He brought out the boxes. They filled the boxes up. They put it in the bag and they took it home with them, right? The leftovers. How many did he start with? How many pieces of bread? 5. How many pieces of fish? 2. And they filled up 12 large baskets after everyone had eaten everything they wanted. You know, God does a miracle in our lives each and every day by giving us another opportunity to trust him. I think that's a pretty huge miracle. But let me just ask you, what are you going to trust him with to multiply in your life? What are you going to give him and say, God, I'm going to kind of totally trust you with this. God, help work a miracle in my life. Now, let me just say this. Whatever you want God to do a miracle in, that is the area that you need to give him. Now, I need you to hear me with this. If you forget anything else, remember this. Whenever you want to give God, whenever you want God to do something miraculous in your life, you've got to give him that area of your life. Now, do you want him to do a miracle in the area of your finances? Well, give him your finances and say, God, I'm going to trust you with this. If you want him to do a miracle with your time, maybe give you more time to do everything that he wants you to do, then you give him your time and you say, God, I'm going to devote this time to follow you and trust you. I know that on the back end you're going to make up for it, Lord. What about your reputation? What about your faith? God, I need some more faith. What about your relationships? I want you to notice this last verse in Mark chapter 10. The Bible tells us that all things are possible with God. How many things are possible with God? All things. All things are possible with God. Now, let me just close by just saying this. What thing do you need God to do a miracle in your life about? What is it that you are trusting him with today? Are you willing to give it to him this morning? Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer.